Good morning. We will start the work session here today on the 17th at 9:17 a.m. This meeting will not be streamed live on the RBC YouTube channel. We are starting with the purpose of work session. Work sessions are intended to provide opportunities for
Just wanted to clarify that. So you do have the most recent copy. The document itself, if you've read through that, it breaks down the most critical things. It breaks down, what priorities they suggest. It also breaks down, that they did talk with not only finance staff, but others in trying to put together a good, consistent implementation plan, including timelines and things like that. So Lisa and Dawn and I worked on a plan of putting this presentation together and say, what is it that we need to start with first? And how do we, if I can get over there, make sure I'm still getting on the right one. How do we take those priorities and a little bite at a time, but try and move as quickly as we can? So this is going for 2025, so starting immediately and then moving on to 2026. And if there's some things we need to carry over to 2027, and I'll try and cover all those as we go on. So first and primarily, the number one priority, and that was identified by them as well, is they believe we need to recruit a full-time finance director. And in lieu of that, go ahead and possibly post for an additional accountant 2 position. Now, we would only hire one or the other. The preference would be to get a finance director. And I kind of go back to my employment with Rio Blanco County. It was just at the right time, the job was the right posting. There could be someone looking to retire to Rio Blanco that haven't looked at the previous postings for the finance director. We can discuss whether you want to increase that salary amount, see if that would lure someone in. Or, and again, if we go ahead and post contingently at the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah, let's just say it at the same time. If we post at the same time for an accountant 2 position, that will do a couple of things. If we don't get the finance director, if we don't get any applicants this time around, that second accountants, because right now Danny is an accountant 1, but if we had an accountant 2 position, she could apply for that, or someone else could possibly apply for that may not have the training to be a finance director right now, but we could get one or the other is the thought there. So we will either hopefully get a finance director, or we will have an accountant 2 and an accountant 1 in that office to give us the breadth that we need to be able to tackle all the challenges that we're looking at.
Hopefully with accountant 2, putting it as accountant 2, we'll get somebody with more experience in accounting at least. Danny, when she came over, straight from school. She didn't have any accounting experience, just the what knowledge you acquire in college. So, she's working and she's developing, but to get to where the finance director, we're going to have to start with higher knowledge level, and preferably we'll get somebody with some decent government accounting experience qualification.
And I think that's one of those things as we look at this position, we determine, if for some reason, let's say that unicorn doesn't exist of a finance director, having that accountant two position will allow Danny to say, yeah, I'm ready for that step. And she may feel like that's what she wants to go for to become the next finance director. Or, we have, someone else comes in that's, got the governmental experience or may not have the governmental experience, but we can manipulate that and say, okay, well then maybe Danny's that fit to grow that and work with Lisa and take time off to basically not focus on these duties, whoever that person is. They're not going to be able to finance on the regular county duties and learn up the position. They're going to be able to do some of those things, but not all of it. So we've got to take some burden off of that position that we want to grow up if we can't get the finance director. Does that make sense?
Is Danny a finance one? Or,
Yes,
she's a
she's an accountant one position currently. Yep. And that would be a logical step for a growth path would be to go from accountant one to accountant two. Lisa, I'm not sure what if that's the next step is a deputy finance director and then a director, or how that would typically look. What has been your experience there?
Bigger counties, it would be like an assistant finance director. Small counties, it seems like you just jump.
Yeah, just one for the other.
Yeah, accountant one or accountant two, you jump to finance director, depending on the size.
So, and hopefully with doing some of these changes that are going to be later on, as some of those duties become more automated, we're going to free up the staff's time to be able to learn those new things. So as soon as possible, I would like to go ahead and post, and using one of the other systems that's down further on, post for both positions. Again, with the understanding, we are not going to hire both positions. We will only hire one.
Hopefully,
Hopefully we'll get.
get applicants.
I'm good with that. I think the sooner the better.
Agreed.
And that, like I said, that was the priority for eBay. We definitely got to move for that.
And we really need some relief over there in order to get the training that whoever it's going to be, the more qualified person, if we don't get a full-time finance director. Because, right now they're just trying to keep finance above water.
Absolutely. Doing a great job keeping it afloat. But it has been certainly a drain on it. Okay. So the strategy post both positions to widen a candidate pool, hire only one. Preferred outcome is an experienced finance director, big magic unicorn. The alternative is hire an accountant two with a path to directorship. We have budgeted in 2025 for the position of the finance director at that higher salary, which we're using a portion of that to cover leases, but this still will fall within that limit. So we will not have to do a budget supplemental for that. Again, if we can't find the magic unicorn, we still have funds in the budget for the accountant two position that will beef up that department to be able to take on these extra duties and these changes as they roll out.
What is a path for accountant to become a director?
I think there's several different things, and Lisa and I've talked about this kind of that. But several is individual training. Send them to different trainings, especially on GASP and other government accounting methods. So they may go for a 2-week training in Denver, and then we also have the unique accounting of the Department of Human Services. That's different than anything else in government. So try to get them trained up on that as well. On that, either through like we did try to do with Christensen, send them to different trainings and things like that. Put them in a position where they can also do some self-study and some mentoring with Lisa. Try to teach them and get them find out what they need to do in order
Is that a 6 month, 2 years?
Well, it depends on the level that they come in at. If they come in with a decent level and understanding of government finance, then it'll be, let's say, 6 months to a year. If they don't have that, it could be a 2 year process.
Yeah, if you can find somebody with governmental accounting experience, like preferably in like a county or a town, then the learning curve's not hard to go to another county and know how everything is supposed to work. And especially the county, they dealt with Department of Human Services before, and you know what the financial statements are supposed to look like and what the reports are.
Yeah, I guess obviously that would depend on the person.
And I think whoever it is, I think we'd have to sit down and really detail out, okay, this is your path. This is what we expect you to do. This is how we're going to line up some of those overall duties in order to allow you to.
And under a separate email, I will send you, Laura provided me with the job descriptions for all three of those positions, account one, account two, and finance director. So you'll have that to kind of take a look at. And that would be kind of that path that says, these are the step ups, you know, and how do we reach those step ups? If, you know, that's the way we need to go with it.
Sounds good.
Priority number 2, upgrade to Encode 10. So going back and forth with Bailey, or not Bailey, Tyler.
I guess you do it.
Yeah, you got me doing it. With Tyler, that is going to be critical. They just, number one, they don't even sell Encode 9 anymore. The reporting function is antiquated. It's not very robust for reports, for things like that end up making their lives a lot easier if you can go in and do a query for a report rather than having to know, oh, I got to click on this button, and I click on this button, and this is where the report is hidden. And then you can maybe download it to an Excel report and then manipulate it. The reporting through Encode 10 is critical. Janae had actually wanted to move to Encode 10 last year, or, had kind of planned on, moving towards that direction. But at the time, we just kind of put that off and said, okay, there's a lot of change. Do we do it now? So it is in the 2025 budget. We did allocate for that. If we tell them, yes, pull the trigger, it will not be we won't have Encode 10 until summer of 2026. There's a lot of back end work that they have to do to make that work. And Lisa, you could probably talk to that more. I don't know how that looks from a finance, but it won't interrupt operations until sometime later on as we get closer to that time period. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, I think they have to do a lot of back end work, and they probably also have a backlog of other municipalities and counties that they're taking care of to try to do that change. That probably is some of the lag, but on the county side, we'll be making sure that everything's reconciled and correct so that when you do that transfer over, that it all goes smoothly. And everything's good in Encode 9, but when you transfer it to Encode 10, that process should.
We have a pretty big backlog in those 9 accounting, or we got up now.
No, I think we're getting caught up. I think VHS was the last thing that needed to really be caught up.
So key benefits of that is enhanced reporting, improved navigation, streamlined workflows. Again, part of having an additional body there, either a strong finance director in place or a second accountant, will then allow us to manage the staff workload during that implementation. Go ahead. Okay. Priority number 3 was to modernize timekeeping, payroll, and HR functions with Bamboo HR. I called that some different names. I can't seem to remember that, but I've been reprimanded several times by people. Do not say that word. So anyway, Bamboo, as you know, Commissioner, did approve us moving to that. Laura has been already hit the ground running. So phase 1 is currently underway, where Laura is taking the employee records, onboarding, offboarding, HRIS integration, human resources information system integration. And what that is doing right now, Laura had told me this morning, she's got all the employees entered. now she's going back and entering a lot of that information of when someone was hired and when, are there things in their file that we need to set up into that. Now that phase one doesn't have to be completed. So she's got the first step of getting all the employees entered. She's got new employees that are coming on. Of course, people are offloading at times, so she'll have to, start manipulating that information. Phase two, from what I understand, there was a very good meeting with the finance department. Lisa, you were there. Laura was there, about when do we, or can we, or do we even want to go with the Bamboo payroll system, which would take that, offload that whole payroll piece and take it out. After seeing the presentation, I was told felt it went really well. That we could look at an October rollout of that. So
We are going with the payroll.
I believe we're going with the payroll. Lisa, is that your understanding? That was Laura's understanding.
Yeah, that's what
And they were able to address the concerns that there was.
And it makes sense of the hours that the staff spends on payroll. Looks like Carol spends about 50 to 60 hours doing payroll on a monthly basis. The 3 to 4 days from other people in other departments with dealing with cutting the checks and everything. So, that's a good one person, 2 weeks almost to do that.
So does N code 10 not do payroll?
Not to this level. So it will do it. But Laura had looked at that provision and what else would it would do. For the cost, it wouldn't do the HRIS system. So she would still need a separate system to keep track of those records and the onboarding and offboarding of people. It is purely more of a timekeeping type thing. And
when you say timekeeping, N code 10 is the timekeeping, or Bamboo HR?
Bamboo HR is the timekeeping.
Okay. Do those systems, I mean, we're talking about a lot of different systems here, and can they communicate with each other? Because that's been part of the problem with N code 10 or 9 is that ClearedUp doesn't pick up on N code 9. Now we're adding another system. Is that going to be more time consuming for staff? I mean, that I know N code 9 was a problem with that, especially downloading spreadsheets.
My understanding that Bamboo is more, goes from input to HR and everything melts together with that. And I think that's one of the reasons Laura likes it. She can enter a new employee. So, you have to enter the existing ones first, but so a new employee comes in, she enters that, and then they get the rate benefits and everything entered for the employee. You don't have to do each one individually. They can do them as class employees, so they don't necessarily have to put. We know what the benefits are going to be for most employees. They're going to be saying if you work this many hours, you'll get these benefits. This many hours, you get this benefit. Below that, you're part-time getting it. So my understanding from talking with Laura, that she'll enter that, and then it goes all the way down to the individual timekeeper. So the individual timekeeper will keep their time on the system. The supervisor or department head or director, depending on where that is, will have to review. And then it's going to take more of the responsibility for the accuracy from out of the finance department to the direct supervisor. Make sure that they're employees, because it's a lot easier to have one supervisor check 5 employees than it's going to be to have finance check the whole 120 employees of the county. Make sure. So we're putting more responsibility on them, and that will kick in. Those numbers, from what I understand, they'll be loaded into the system. We'll take those numbers and percentages and benefits that HR is putting in, calculate the payroll.
And then I think from the Encode side, Bamboo, you're supposed to be able to set up the accounts that you want employees to be coded to, and then download an adjustment that can be uploaded to Encode and post automatically. So that's how it's supposed to work. So we'll have to wait and see, I guess, that first couple of payrolls to see how smoothly that works, where you can just download this adjustment and upload it. If it works like that, then it would save a ton of time. If they have to go through and create a journal entry every time, then that would probably be a day's work.
That's,
Yes.
I guess that's my question exactly, is how well are they gonna interact with each other as well as even ClearGov and Code 10? Is that supposed to be better if we did Code 10? Because I know it wasn't talking with ClearGov very well.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about.
It still won't integrate. They just don't. I mean, it's a download and an upload, but the download and upload doesn't take too long. Once, like you said, if everything is in encode, it downloads and then it uploads into ClearGov. And we can do that more frequently. We don't have to do it. Janae only did it once a year. We can actually start to do that more often. We may not need it as much when we're actually getting the reports to you. Again, with the Encode 10 reporting, it's going to be a lot easier to navigate. With the ClearGov, and really the strategic planning module is what you're referencing, is how are we doing towards our goal? That's where that upload comes in, from download from Encode and up to ClearGov. That's that Clear Plans module that says, here's your identified goals and here's what you spent your money on. Here's how you progress these goals.
And the other way, we have to get from Encode to, or from ClearGov to Encode that we're having trouble with now, because that doesn't happen right away. And then we don't know
No, it
where
doesn't
we're
happen
at.
until, April, usually when the books close. I think a lot of these solutions are going to tie together. And honestly, I can guarantee you right now, and I want it on the record, it's gonna screw up. We're gonna have issues. I mean, if you're doing a new software, nothing is seamless. It is definitely, there's gonna be some heartburn. I think when we get to the other side of it though, it will be much better. Another thing that this Bamboo does, it's gonna automate all of like the 941s and the
W2.
W-2s, the employee side of it. If the employee wants to see or change their, their tax withholdings, they want to see how much they're paying for insurance. Though all those things will factor in, which is much easier than Encode. I can tell you, when I've talked with my cohorts in other counties, very few of them use Encode payroll. Now, I don't know if they were on the 9 or 10 version. They tend to have their own systems that they've developed outside of Encode. Lisa, I think, has the most experience with using like an offsite type, payroll system like this. I mean, what other functionality does it have that typically you've seen? I mean, the tax reporting
And I haven't worked with a lot of governments that have outsourced their payroll, but I've worked with a lot of entities who have, and the biggest thing for smaller entities has been the payroll reporting. They take care of the tax stuff, and employees are able to access their own information, and I think that's a big benefit. I think if they can cut down on some of the redundancy too that they're doing now in the payroll process, where they're having to review stuff and do a lot of things manually, which opens up a lot of room for error.
Mhm.
I think it'll cut down time that way. And if the department heads are forced to make sure everything's correct before it goes into the payroll system, that'll save a lot of time, because I think that's what they spend a lot of time on now, is going through everybody's timesheet and seeing if it looks correct or if it doesn't. And if people are taking sick leave or vacation inappropriately, that takes a lot of time and a lot of back and forth. It sounds like the Bamboo software catches that. So if you're trying to take vacation and you don't have it available, it catches that automatically instead of a person having to go through after the fact and review a timesheet.
I don't understand how that falls on accounting, because that should be on the directors. The accounting doesn't know what the guy's doing yesterday. Director's the one that should be watching the time and what's going on.
this will definitely, and the other systems that we have will definitely, and I talked to the directors the other day, this will definitely put more of the burden back on each of the directors and the elected officials where it should be.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that part later too. So a couple other benefits by going with Bamboo is the tax reporting, major workload reduction, and employees will have self-service where they can make their own changes. add things. And now that does go to Laura to review to finalize. But it's just, to me, it looks like it's going to be a good system. It's going to be a good fit. It's going to be a good improvement.
So I'm just thinking out loud, if we have to do something with benefits that, we have different classes or different places where they can choose different benefits, will this bamboo take care of that in this situation?
I will have to clarify that. I believe they can because it seems like they're very robust. They were able to take, because county governments or I guess governmental entities are the only ones that can do comp time the way we do it is time and a half. And it was like, no problem. They just, so we will confirm that. So I will make sure that Laura, I bet she's on, I will make sure that Laura confirms that for it.
And I don't know about bamboo, but my system that I use for my law firm, it does. You can have a benefit for every person if you needed to. You just, for that person one time, and then they kick in and now she had to do a change. And then the nice thing I do really like about my system is what Vicki had said, is that if they put down more vacation time than what they have, that alerts me. I know that they don't have that much vacation left.
So then the next step is basically it's eliminating any remaining manual validation processes. And again, the whole thing is if we can kind of get this bucket moved off of our finance, then that allows them to focus on other areas. It's not going to do away with the job position. Let me be clear on that. We need those positions to do other duties that we can actually get to. So I don't see it as being able to, oh gosh, now we can go to one person department. I think we need those folks. We're going to be going through some transitions as things get smarter. We work better. There will be other tasks that we can adopt and take on, that will help us to move forward.
And right now, I think that there are a lot of things that finance needs to be doing that they're not getting to.
Then why do we need to do that?
Well,
I think some of it's proactive things like monitoring the budget more timely, keeping up with DHS. I think things just fall behind.
Grants is another thing.
Grants
How
is
do
another
we,
thing.
now we've done
Finance
with
could
way
take
with
over
position
more.
of grants. And so how do we track those existing grants? That's something that, been a huge burden on both Lisa and I.
Well,
Just a lot of reallocation of duties.
in the business world, if you're putting software in to save on employee stuff, then you're gonna get rid of an employee. You're not gonna find more work for an employee to do. So I'm a little,
well, and I think there could be, that could be something once we get it implemented and you have to reevaluate, okay, what's that going to look like? And if somebody retires, do we replace them? Do we, they quit? Do we replace them or do we?
yeah, I just don't want to say that we're not gonna lay anybody off, and find work for them to do.
I don't think it's a situation of that. I just think that there's so many things that we're not currently doing that we need to be doing. Again, we've done away with the whole granting person.
Yeah, but if we're not doing
Nothing
them
that's being done.
and getting by, why do we need to do it?
We're not barely getting by. That's the thing that could get us crucified in an audit. So again, it's those things that, what is the backlog of stuff that isn't a priority or a critical need? Now, eventually, ultimately, how many of us actually need jobs as AI gets smarter and smarter? It will, shoot, we don't need an attorney. We can just Google that.
And
Right.
I understand that, but I'm just being cautious. I'm not.
Yeah,
100%
I don't
biased
foresee-
to that. I just,
Well, and I don't foresee that happening for a few years, at least. If that's, would be once different things roll into place and things are up and running and Encode 10 is now up and, maybe there's something else we can automate, whether it be in finance or another department. We're definitely going to have to look at not refilling positions, I think. But I think this will give us the ability to do so, not just with finance, but with other positions too. That we're not going to have the record keeping, hopefully, that we are having to do right now. And that may not be in that department, that may be across the board in different areas.
I'm not saying that we should get rid of somebody. I'm just saying that if we get more efficient, that's where we get efficient is we don't
We
need.
don't need as many people.
Right.
You know, and you can apply that throughout, I think, countywide. And, you know, and I think that's one of those hard discussions that we have is what do we have to have? And as we start looking at those positions, there may be ones that we say, okay, when, you know, when this happens, then that.
And I think that those conversations are gonna have to happen this budget session. Knowing what we're going into with HR1 and just human services and the amount of money that is going to trickle down to the counties. We're looking at some pretty hard hits, just SNAP alone, admin wise, you know, potentially looking at $1 million if they evenly split that out to the counties. And that's evenly splitting it out. So you only have one portion of HR1 that we're potentially looking at county only dollars of $1 million. If they did it that way. I don't see the state doing it that way. The state's not going to take that on. They can't afford it.
And they're already in it. They're already overdrawn.
Right.
So priority 4, another big redundancy that we have is in our AP processes, the automation and increased vouchering frequency. Again, we're going to have the staff to try to implement this type of thing, but we do have Tyler's technology AP automation bundle. Is $10,000 annually. That's on top of our normal expenses. The funding for that was not in the 2025 budget, but is eligible if you guys decided that you wanted to move forward with that right away. We could take that out of contingency. Key benefits of that is that invoice automation, the ACH payments, by going, basically what that would look like is we have this AP automation set up, and I will run you a demo here in just a second. But basically an invoice comes in and it would go to like an email address. So Bob's Builders is doing a project for Eric, and there's invoices that are coming in, and Eric needs to divide that between different cost centers or different GL numbers. Eric would set that up once so that when an invoice comes from Bob the Builder, it will automatically flow through that budget to those line items. And again, if it's Elsa or someone else in his department that does it, it can roll up to Eric for approval. This automatic, all the invoices come in, they automatically get generated a voucher. It comes in, the person who's looking at it says, that is correct, send, goes to their supervisor for approval. Supervisor looks at it, it's send, it goes to finance bundles those into one package. It goes to ACH. So basically it's within Tyler, but they get that bundle. And it says, okay, you need to pay, let's say this little bundle is $15,000. There's one ACH that hits our Mountain Valley account for that pay run cycle for all, whether it's Bob the Builder and Sally Seashell Collector, easy for me to say, you know, all those get bundled up into one ACH file. Then that one ACH file comes out of Mountain Valley. Is Mountain Valley? I think it's San Juan's. I'm not sure.
We're Mountain Valley.
Okay. Then it goes to basically to the Tyler. Tyler immediately ACHs those items. So we get to the point where ACHing those payments rather than paper check handling. Right now, at the 11th, the first meeting of the month, the second Tuesday of the month, those physical checks are being printed and held. So we're at a 45-day to 60-day time period, depending on when an item was vouchered. The physical checks are being printed. They're getting their signatures. Recruiting reporter puts those signatures on. They go to Rhonda's department. She sorts them. She stuffs them in checks, puts them shut, puts the stamp on them, takes them over to the post office as soon as you've authorized it. With this type of system, and if a check gets lost, let's say someone doesn't get a payment, a stop payment costs you $50. Here, it's a click of a button. It's like, no, we want to deactivate that ACH payment. The ACH payment goes away. There's not the risk is extremely mitigated by going with the ACH processing. Again, staffing wise right now to switch over to that's going to be a challenge given all the other things that we're throwing at them to, you know, get the payroll up and going. And how do we do that? We need to schedule an additional demo for the commissioners and staff probably to look through that process. Again, kind of going through and playing devil's advocate. Well, if we do this, then what? You know, if we have to do a journal entry for every single one of them, it's not going to be beneficial. But from all that I've seen, it's the way of the world. We know that the federal government is going to mandate ACH checks. They're not going to do paper checks.
Because they can't trust their mailing system.
They can't trust their mailing system.
That's what
Exactly.
it comes back to. I agree with you on that.
And neither can we, just for the record.
No, and
We've
we
found.
do about 110 hours a month of finance employee time, manually doing the vouchers the way they are. And then the processes of doing it is pretty time consuming. The way we set it up to where the voucher comes in, they do the voucher, they send it back to the supervisor who signs off on it and returns it to finance. And if we do electronic, so the finance, or excuse me, so the supervisor or director can approve the expenditure that, this is an expenditure for my thing, that's correct. Send it to finance. Finance doesn't have to spend as much time on whether or not the amount's correct, because that's on the supervisor or directors now. So they say, okay, this has been approved, but we can put it through the system to start the process.
I think that moving forward, that's with the automation stuff with AP and payroll and that stuff is a long time coming, but I just can't do things. I can't justify doing that unless you can pick up money somewhere else, and that somewhere else is going to have to be payroll. And you just can't stay where you're at and add money and say that you're going to get better, more efficient. That doesn't work. Unless you can cut somewhere else by, and I understand some of that's going to fall down to the people that are doing the paperwork before it gets to the admin. They should free up time.
Absolutely. Everyone will free up time.
Everybody should free up time, but we can't. We just have to be mindful that we're trying to save money here. That's what this is all about. Because if we're not trying to save money, why change?
We can't spend more money to just spend more money.
Right.
Well, that's what I don't think you will. I don't think,
Agreed.
in how do we get from here to there?
No, I understand what you're saying, but I'm just cautious.
Okay, so I'm going to just run a little thing for you here. Let me get to my.
I think some of that automation will add accuracy too as a benefit, because you don't have people individually trying to do things, doing manual entries or vouchering things. The automation is more accurate than people generally.
I agree. I can see that, but it still translates back to man hours because the mistakes have to be fixed.
Yeah.
So it all comes back to people mistakes.
Humans make mistakes.
A couple of them do it.
I think he's saying it's you and I.
That's what I'm wondering.
See if this actually works. So. I'm hoping-
Office supplies, equipment, maintenance services. Your vendors help keep your office moving, but paying them can really slow you down. Your organization works with hundreds of suppliers, which means your accounts payable staff spends hundreds of hours processing payments through a variety of methods, many of which are paper check. Spent identifying
Oh, well, now it's showing.
office supplies, equipment, maintenance services. Your vendors help keep your office moving. Paying them can really slow down. Your organization works with hundreds of suppliers, which means your accounts payable staff spends hundreds of hours
me try this one more time.
This is a bad example of how technology will.
Like how technology actually works.
Reboot.
Yep, reboot.
Reboot.
Hello.
Hey, ladies. Thank you. Thank you. And if it doesn't load, I'll just walk my computer over there and you can see it. It's out of share my screen. In. There appears to be a delay.
We need one of those Wi-Fi thingies in here. One of those Wi-Fi thingies in here. You know, the extenders.
I hope that this upgrade they're gonna do here fixes a lot of
Fix
it.
all of it.
I hope.
That's where she's lagging, is that she's not connected very well.
It just seems like it. Maybe it takes a second.
Office supplies, equipment, maintenance services. Your vendors help keep your office moving, but paying them can really slow you down. Your organization works with hundreds of suppliers, which means your accounts payable staff spends hundreds of hours processing payments through a variety of methods, many of which are paper check. Their days are spent identifying what needs to be paid for, who should receive the payment, and for the payment. All of before printing, signing, processing, and reconciling the payment. But it's more than manpower and paperwork. From bank fees and postage to lost checks and potential security risks, the costs can really add up. Tyler Technologies AP Automation is here to streamline and digitize the entire payments process. Here's how it works. Your accounts payable department is ready to make the payment run. Approved invoices will be bundled together in a clear and concise data file, eliminating the paperwork associated with printed checks. That data is then sent through AP Automation, where payments will be issued on your behalf according to how your vendors want to be paid. Once payment is sent to a vendor, it is reflected immediately in your account. Both buyers and suppliers reap the benefits of AP Automation. Your organization will save time and money by streamlining a menu process, while vendors benefit from quick access to guaranteed funds, reduced fraud exposure, and seamless reconciliation. Contact your Tyler representative to learn how you can automate your accounts payable processes today.
And you didn't get to see the video of it, but I don't know, but, so again, that's kind of just a little teaser on it, but no, we'll just hit cancel. We'll just stop with that. That's not working there. Oh, you've lost your connection. Okay, well, there you go.
Our internet not wanting to cooperate.
It's been bad things.
It's working good with Jennifer.
I do that to electronics.
And he's on your case today.
I know, he is.
Mistakes in technology.
Sorry.
If I had a Twinkie.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, there we go. So now we're back to where we started. Right?
Mhm.
Yes, okay. So, funding is not in the 2025 budget. We could use contingency if you decided you want to move forward this year. Invoice automation, HSA payments, reduced errors, and we'll schedule an additional demo for you all, where they can walk through that process, which I think is critical. to Make sure that that process works with, what we want to accomplish is spending less time using technology to spend less time doing that and more time doing the other things that we've got to get done.
And this one is 9,000 a year.
Mhm.
And the others that we've talked about, Encode and the Bamboo, those are all annual payments, not just a one-time
Yes,
fee.
they are annual.
And this is in code.
This is a part of Encode. It's a different
Right.
module.
but
And
it's-
our Tyler technology guy, Gibson, said that it is basically the almost identical say software, however he said technology. So when we moved to Encode 10, they would just do a quick conversion because it's got all the code basically built out, but it is built out for 9. So it would be a flip to Encode 10 at that point. So there is another step that we'd have to go, but it wouldn't charge an additional cost. It's just the 9,000 per year. So then when we get mid-year and they say, oh, great, Encode 10's up and running, yay. Then they just flip it to make it that AP process as part of it.
So if we do this now, there's a lot of extra work getting this set up, and we're talking the same thing we were a minute ago with payroll. Right? There's a lot of work. Is it wise to do them both at the same time?
No, I don't think so. I don't think you could do the payroll AP automation at the same time. Now, the Tyler guy, Gibson, said, oh, no, it's really nothing. To me, I'm hesitant about that. Lisa, ladies, I mean, I don't think that would be a good use to flip the switch on both of them at the same time, but I will defer to.
I think you go with one and see how that works and then move to the next.
Yeah, I'm
Instead of doing it all at once.
really excited to get them both going, but I don't want to shoot ourselves what doing.
And I think maybe if we did, if we do have Bamboo up and running in October, we could see how much time that allots us. Is it saving money? Are we disenfranchised with it? Is it not working? Or if it's working great, then we have the capacity to take on an additional challenge. Remember, you always have your year-end closing, which is a monster. There's just tons and tons of work that goes into that end of year processing. And then to piggyback that on there. Now, maybe it wouldn't be as big of a deal, but again, if we could target this being maybe January, February, but I don't know. I'll have to defer to y'all on that to see how that process is going.
I would like to see a targeted date though for that. I get doing it all at once is going to be a lot of work, but then I can also see where we get comfortable and we get stagnant and then nothing moves forward. So I would like to see a target date for, yeah.
I agree with that. Government's terrible for that. We need dates.
Tell me what you think about a date to target. Do you want to target do we set like a February 1 date or a January 1 day? I mean, I don't
For
know
what?
for the AP.
So do you want to do payroll first?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be October. So we'd have that rolling hopefully by November and be smooth and ironed out, maybe.
Maybe.
And do the end of the year stuff. And then we did it, January, February, that people walk into it the leaks here.
I would say February to me sounds, you're looking at 4 months to kind of work through the kinks of,
And you could put it in the budget, in the 2026 budget,
Mhm.
instead of doing a allocation out in the 25.
I'm all right with that if you say that's the end. If we get comfortable and want to do it in January, what the heck?
Do it earlier,
Yeah.
but not later.
The Bamboo would be the October one we've been talking about. And then AP would be the January, February thing, right?
Again, this, a lot of this will assist when we go back to that very first slide of priority. You know, having an additional body, whether that is the accountant two position or whether that's, you know, we have accountant two and accountant one, or we have an accountant one and a finance director. That's an extra body that they've not had on top of keeping Lisa, because we do need to keep Lisa on until, you know, at such time that we can transition on.
Into this.
So if we, speaking of that, if we get the finance director, then Lisa and the finance director are going to parallel for 30 days or something, and is that,
Yeah,
Or
whatever you
always.
guys felt like and how, it would depend, I guess, on how much transition the new finance director needed. What you guys felt was appropriate.
Um. The fifth priority that they listed was overhaul budget calendar and training, initiate quarterly reporting. So the overhaul of the budget calendar, I am working on that. I should have that. Fortunately, I was hoping to have that out to you today or tomorrow. It may take this weekend, but basically that goes back a couple different things. One is the budget calendar. There was some confusion. Staff had said there's confusion over the budget process. And I think that breaks down to a couple of different things, is using different systems, sending out spreadsheets versus just doing the change to ClearGov. Enter your budgets in ClearGov. This is how you enter it. This is how you manipulate ClearGov. Then ClearGov actually made some changes to their platform. So we do have that training set up for the introductory. Here's how you enter your information into the budget. Then the step that happens with the budget calendar is that setting of the individual scrubs with each commissioner. So as you three, as reviewers, you'll be able to go in and see all the budgets every day. You'll get emails on changes. So you can go in and say, oh, I like that. I don't like that. I want to make a comment about that. I want to ask about that. So that way, that note type taking, we can be addressing as we do that scrub. The individual scrubs then basically roll up. Again, the system to way that this should lay out is we've got our personnel tables already developed. You've gotten that spreadsheet. Laura is going to give us one that will drop that out by department so that you can see that by cost center, so that you can actually take a look at that while you're looking at the budget in the scrub. We're not going to lock in those figures. It's not an approval of the budget, but it's just keying in, you know, some different scenarios into that packet so that we can drive the rest of the general operations budget. Again, when we're looking at what we're looking at here is the operations, not necessarily the other things that go into that. We're talking about covering our operations with our existing funding. How do we do that? How do we cover operations with reduced funding? But then you also have to piggyback that into what projects do we need to complete to keep the county operating? You know, that comes out of, you know, those other funds that we have set aside. Do you issue grants? Those kinds of things. So that calendar, I hope to have to you maybe by Saturday. So we can start to work through that process. I think the key thing that staff really didn't understand is the process of doing, you know, the ClearGov, using ClearGov as the tool as it's designed, using the capital project module in ClearGov that we pay for as it's designed. So that'll be a big part of it.
we have to do that, or we have to change systems. Because the way that it's been working since I've been here is there's too much confusion. Everybody does something different. And it's because we didn't get it loaded in, uploaded from here to there, or somebody didn't do something right here or whatever. Everybody's doing something different, operating the system different. It's just not.
Well, and it's not necessarily the system, because a lot of people didn't enter their information. They would just, you know, send back a spreadsheet, and then the
That's what
spreadsheet,
I'm
you know,
saying. It's,
versus just saying, let's just use the technologies as it's built. It works for a lot of different governments. So why won't it work for us?
you know,
Or if we go through this year and it still isn't smoother, a smoother process, then we look at filling it. The budget is in process developing, and in code 9 lacks ClearGov integration as does 10. However, the information that we will eventually get to in code 10 will be a lot better. I think you're going to see a huge difference in the being able to generate those reports and see where things are.
We've looked at a lot of different software things to make things better and more efficient. Have you looked at the budgeting software? Is there something, are we happy with what's there? Or
I don't know. I'm getting more comfortable with ClearGov. But I think that would be a whole another hoop to jump through. The other option, a lot of people outsource budget. That's another option. It's kind of like the different things is there a cheaper option that is outsourced? Is there a cheaper solution to do something that we're doing? Can we, just like payroll, is there something that we're missing out on? But that will take time to research. And unfortunately, if someone wants to jump in and take that down and see if there's a better option for that process, I'm all ears.
so the answer is we haven't looked at that. We're still trying to make the
ClearGov
work.
for this year.
So in time, I'm wondering, have you seen where the budget and the accounting system are all, actually talk to each other
Same stuff.
rather than having to upload, download, all that? Have you seen anything around like that?
No, I had one.
Somebody needs to make their money and do this.
And it's really a separate thing. It would be nice if your accounting software, because you do the budget that one time.
Right.
And then it gets uploaded to Encode. If there is an easy way for everybody to pull budget reports that showed them where they were by department, that would make all the difference. And it wouldn't matter if they ever had to access ClearGov or not, right, in my opinion. But it seems like reports are hard to pull out of Encode 9 for people that show them what they want to see in their budget to actual reports. And I think you might be able to tell me if I'm right or wrong, but I think not everybody knows how to pull those reports, or they don't have the access to pull them, or they don't know what to look for. So I think that if people could pull their own reports, that would make the biggest difference in your budget monitoring throughout the year. And last year, I would agree in the budget process that everybody using a different software or spreadsheet or something to put together their budget and then trying to coordinate all of that to get it into ClearGov is difficult, and it's really prone to error.
Okay, so I think what you said there finally clicked with me, what Vicky's been trying to tell me.
Sorry,
But let me see.
Sally, I probably am.
No, I'm a little slow sometimes. So you upload the budget one time, but with Encode 10, we are supposed to be able to pull budget versus actual within that system throughout the year, anytime we want to.
With Encode 9. And you can do that with Encode 9 as well.
So why haven't we been doing it? Because I really would like to see budget versus actual right here in front of me frequently, so we know where we're at. So why haven't we done that? So I guess
We just never have. And that was, if you look down at the next point, that is something that I will be providing to you, to the directors and to the commissioners on a monthly basis. However,
Thank
remember
you.
the training that Eric did with you?
Yes,
I think Doug was in there too.
yes.
He went over that report, the budget to actuals.
Okay.
And it is that one report. Now, again, you still have a little bit of a delay because you would be, am I correct in saying we're looking at the June 30th would now be in the books and be updated in Encode now, right? Or would it still be May 30th?
In the AP,
It'd be the June 30th rolled over. So you still have a month delay just because of processing.
Right, and I
you have
can
to
live
close
with
out the
that.
month.
And it takes several months to get the budget into Encode. I mean, we're talking April, May before it ever gets into Encode.
When was it in?
I'd have to look back and see when it got uploaded.
Looks like it was March or April. Does it have to be after the closeout of the?
It seems like it was at the end of March. I'd have to look back and see. But there's that whole extra period at the end of the year before Encode, last year's Encode is closed, which was the end of March, and it seems like the budget got uploaded after that. And I'm not sure why you couldn't do that. So I'm not sure if there's a reason why you do that. Because it should be available in January. So
But that-
people can start monitoring their budget.
Yeah, that's
Instead
what
of
I'm
not
thinking.
having-
Why does it have to wait? Maybe the software just doesn't
Yeah,
open up
I-
to let you do that, but I'm thinking, I'm hoping that gets fixed, because that doesn't seem
Yeah.
logical to me.
Lisa, could that be something you find out? Yeah, on that, if there's a way to upload the current, or it'd be the new budget into the new year sooner rather than later.
The computer. Okay,
So,
that would be awesome. Thank you.
So I will, be pulling those reports and emailing them to, the directors, commissioners, and electeds on a monthly basis.
Thank you very much.
So I'm thinking the best time to do that would probably be that'd be the first meeting or maybe the second meeting. Just wondering when. So when the month closes out, what is that? When is the AP fully like updated? Would that be by the first meeting or is it that second meeting?
It'd be by
The first meeting? Okay, because then they approve those payments for that previous run, right? Okay, so I can have that for you by that first meeting.
In this accounts payable system you're talking about upgrading to, is that gonna help us with our 45-day wait?
It's, yeah, I mean, it's instant. I mean, it's, again, we would probably want to set a time period like what they kind of suggested was every 2 weeks as those electronic vouchers
So
come
we
in
can
and
pay
then,
every 2 weeks instead
ACH
of
and-
45 days.
and then the ACH basically processes immediately. And it's not, having, now again, this is going to be on the commissioners because in the E. Bailey report, they address that and they said, really, when I talked with Sam, what he said is, we're going through like a 4-step process when really we just need one. So you commissioners approve the budget. So, and I'm going to use Eric because his has the projects and that's kind of an easy way to tackle that. So Eric has a project. He says, I'm going to build a widget in the middle of the front lawn. You say, that's great. We've got the money for it. It's been allocated in the 2026 budget. So then Eric starts that project. So you've approved the budget and then he goes to issue the contract. Well, we've issued the RFP and then he comes out and says, great, I've got Bob the builder's going to build the widget. It's going to be seamless. It's going to be great. Here it is. He puts it out to bid, figures out who's going to build it. He brings the contract to you guys. You approve the contract with a not to exceed amount. So now you've gotten it in the budget. You've approved the contract. Then the next thing he does is Bob the builder starts building the thing and starts submitting vouchers. Well, in this new system, the electronic vouchers come through. And we've got this one, we've got that one, we've got this one. So Eric knows he's still within budget. But what happens is those checks before they're cut have to wait to that following to the meeting. And then you approve it again. So again, you don't have to do that. That would be one of those steps where you could say, we've approved it in the budget, we've approved it in the project. As long as it's not going over scope, we can approve those in a quarterly meeting. You do that with payroll. Payroll is automatically paid every 2 weeks, whether you like it or not. You've already sent those payments out.
I don't mind paying people.
But then why have that implication? And yes, you do need to approve the actual bills, what's it called? What's it called? Not vouchers. It's, what is it called? The actual check is called a warrant. You have to approve the warrants for the clerk and recorders. I mean, that goes into your permanent record. But you don't have to do that before the checks get licked, stuffed, sealed, mailed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's gonna be really hard if we're working with capital stuff. And for some reason through the year, we decide we don't want to do that capital. You've already spent it. We have it. And it comes through and we're going to approve a check that we don't think we need it. But we have to because we already, I understand what you're trying to do, but it makes me nervous that you're gonna skip over something and I have no control.
I guess the control comes in though, why did we approve it in the budget? And when the item goes out to, and if you're talking about a purchase of, let's say a purchase of a widget, so you're not doing a construction project that you said you wanted to build. Because you get mid-project, you can't really stop at that point. I mean, I guess you could, but whether it's ACH or not, I mean, you could put the skids on it. But approving the check for someone who's already done the work, you're gonna end up in a lawsuit. That's
No, that's exactly what I'm saying.
okay, so tell me again, if it's a capital project, where's your concern?
A capital
Or
purchase.
purchase.
Something that,
Let's say a vehicle, that might be easier. Is that what you're thinking?
well, that would be an example. For some reason, if something changes and we don't want to purchase the vehicle, but it was in the budget and the guy has already went out and bought it and we don't approve of it. And if we have it, we gotta pay for it. So why even?
Yeah, you still approve the actual contract, so you approve it in the budget, right? But they have to do the RFP and bring the actual contract or actual bid to you for award.
Okay,
So if you don't want to approve it, that's the time you.
all right.
you pause.
That's what I'm missing.
Yeah,
Right.
so,
Okay.
the payments won't go out until after that's been done, so that's
Right. If we've approved the contract.
Yeah.
Then I
It's a
can
done
see
deal.
that.
yeah, so, but you don't, it doesn't go to contract until that contract, or I mean, then payment doesn't have to be made till you guys have seen the contract or the bid or whatever and approve that.
Okay.
But I think it does bear maybe we do a better job driving down in that budget. When you
Yes.
feel uncomfortable about something, you just pull the plug and say no.
Well, I
Or,
think,
Well,
because again, that first step is whether we're gonna include it in the budget or not.
and that's what was going through my mind. If that's the way you're gonna do stuff, boy, it's gonna be a pretty hard line on the budget.
well, and the other thing though, that I think will help us, Doug, is the fact that we can see where we are today compared to our budget. That will give me a lot more comfort of, okay, things are getting tight here, or something has changed with the income piece in the middle of the year, which it can.
They have, yeah.
Then we can say, whoa, whoa, whoa. I mean, right now, but that's because we can actually see that budget versus actual. That's gonna give me a lot more comfort. Is there a reason to start tightening down compared to what we thought?
No,
last
I
year?
understand that, but you're hitting on exactly what I'm saying. You wouldn't, if it wasn't for this contract that Don just pointed out, you wouldn't have control over that.
Right,
And that's
It-
really where you
right.
actually approve it anyway. I mean,
Right.
the payments are usually more of an administrative
Yeah.
Right.
approval. But the contracts, when one of the directors or come to you with a contract, say, I want to buy a new ABC.
Right.
And then you look at it and say, okay, that's where you say, did you look at these
So
other?
there has to be something between a budget and the check.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
and there is, and that's,
That's where your real approval is.
yeah, I mean, I've always seen it as if you've budgeted for it and you've approved a contract, I don't know why we need to see it again.
Well, and that would also streamline, I mean, the procurement policy is another thing we need to look at, because in that situation that Sally just mentioned, we're still going through every single step of that. It is so like when you approve a contract, Eric's building the widget and he knows he needs 2 contracts to do that. You've approved the 2 contracts, does he need to come back to you with a voucher that's over, it's over his limit, it's over my limit? Does he have to come back to you with the voucher? It doesn't make sense because you've already approved it through the contract and through the budget. So having the budget, the vouchers then have to make that circular walk again that says, oh yeah, we do approve of the voucher.
Yeah, I guess, if I understand you right, so we do need to be sure that it's in the records that we approve that check, but we could do it quarterly kind of thing.
Post sending it out. And that's E. Bailey, when I talked with them, they recommended they could be as long as quarterly. Lisa, what are your other your other county do, and what does your county do?
My
as
other
far as
county do it
payments?
monthly. They do it at one of the meetings. They just, they have the list, and it's just the list that's part of the consent agenda. And it has all of the warrants that they're asking to be approved. And then that usually is approved through this consent agenda, then it just goes automatically over to the treasurer.
Just like payroll. Here's what we paid everybody.
So I think I misunderstood you a minute ago. If Eric's building this widget and he has two contracts out there and we've approved them, that's fine. But if a contract comes in over budget, we need to see that again
Mhm.
because he has to be.
That no longer meets the contract.
Yeah,
Right.
no longer under
Okay.
the
All right.
procurement
You
policy.
misunderstood. John.
Yeah, because it has to be within the budget that's,
Right.
well, of course, you guys approve every contract that's over each individual
Yeah.
person's approval limit. So if there's a substantial project out there, you're gonna see all those contracts or RFPs or whatever come in. Approve those.
Yeah, I guess my big thing is, so you guys approve on the first agenda each month, you approve the, the checks before Ronna actually, I think she has them stuffed and stamped and just ready to mail. But she waits for that, for you guys to pull the trigger, and then she mails it. Well, now we know how bad mail service is. No, I shouldn't say bad mail service is. It's been challenging of recent. Let's just say that. I know.
Yeah, that's being politically correct.
But, this process, basically by doing it, number one, by ACH, there's gonna be less risk. You guys, except for the one time, 2 weeks ago, I've never seen anything hit on the vouchers. Like, have we mailed that check? Let's see if we can grab that check back before we send it. Never, and that's been 10 years. Because again, by that time period, it's really post facto. They've already done the work. They've already done this. We don't prepay for projects except for one time. We just don't prepay. So it has to have been done already. So anyways, that would expedite that process too. So, and that will be something we'll need to look at. One of the other solutions is to launch the clear plans to align strategy and budget. I had a conversation with each of you that I will reach out to my ACCA counterparts to see if we can expedite a day training to actually get the strategic plan put together. That's been my failure. I own that. I have tried figuring out how we do it individually. We had some meetings. It just kind of fell by the wayside. And I have determined that I am not a strategic plan type person. Now I can get someone scheduled, and that's what I want to try to do particularly for this budget. But in the next few weeks, have someone come in and align our vision statement with a strategic plan. And then that way that gives the directors and the, electeds, if they want to participate in that gives them their direction that says, this is what's a priority for us. Where we've never had that before. And that was my intentions on doing, and I failed to do it.
So I guess we talked a little bit about that when we did your review and stuff. So again, I'm just trying to figure out which comes first, the horse or the cart here. So there's no question we need to get that done. That needs to get done so we can figure out where we're going. And maybe your directors, but there again, the way that you had it set up initially was we need the commissioners to figure out where their priorities are. And then the directors figure out their priorities within that, right? Isn't that kind of how you had that set up initially? So do you feel like we basically got that done? What I guess I'm just thinking, we need to go back and look at it, and you and I were going to sit down and look at it, and we haven't. If you want me to take a hard look at that, and we can do that, and I can visit with you. I'm just not sure how big of a project that would be if there's need to bring somebody in to do that. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just thinking feels like we're spending a lot of money right now, just for the record. So is this something that I could potentially help you with to help get it done? Because I agree, you don't have time to get it done, Vicky. I'm not saying that at all. I mean, and I get it. You do not. Is it something that I can help you with? I mean, I've facilitated some similar things in the past.
I
But-
think it's one of those things of not only developing the strategic plan, but allocating what resources do you want to go? And again, we've got changing priorities. I mean, honestly, when you look at what's happened with, DHS, a year ago or 2 years ago, this wouldn't have been the same conversation as it would be this year. I don't feel when I looked at, the direction we're going that it was, I don't know, I guess I felt like maybe it was missing the mark. And is it truly a vision statement and a strategic plan that will truly carry over year to year to year? Within that clear plan strategy that would then upload, the dollar amounts that says, okay, you've allocated X amount for these projects. How are you doing on those projects? Because then that aligns the directors and they say, okay, if fairgrounds is a priority, then that's what's budgeted and that is a high priority for us. If it's not, then we don't even look at doing those improvements. Those are the things that I'm struggling with.
I would like to, and I don't know if I can't remember how it did look at it, even to be honest with you, but I'd like to take a look at that
Okay.
again before we go out to somebody. And I can do that early next week or something with you. And maybe it's just you and I sitting down and really looking at it. Like we said, we were going to 3 months ago. And now we make that a priority and we make that happen. And then let's do that. I'm not saying we don't go out with somebody, but let's take a hard look at that.
Okay.
You guys are okay with
I think that's all right to get a kind of a path forward, but I don't want to back off right now going out. I'll wait until you guys have your meeting. But I'm still interested in having someone come in and get this done.
Well,
We've been messing around with this too long.
too long. And I guess what I'm just saying for this part, now, I guess that's where I started the conversation, it's where I was going when I started the conversation. There's this piece, but there's a lot bigger piece here of what our community wants this to
Right.
look like.
That's what.
That
I'm saying.
has to go out to the public. Or to contract. What I thought I heard Vicky saying was just this piece for budgeting purposes. And I think we're not that far off from that piece, but the bigger piece that is, what does the community want this to look like? What the
But
county look like, then
but
that
Kelly-
has to be a bigger picture.
That's true, but that still comes down. I mean, it's just like a phone. That's what they want. It still comes down to money. So it's, if you do your, what you think is right here and then the public tells you they want something else, you
Okay.
missed the mark.
Okay, so, and I don't disagree with that, but that's a year from now before that gets done. Even though you go hire somebody to do that, that is a year at least out to get that done. By the time you get all of the input that you want, that's not a short-term turnaround that's gonna happen in a couple of weeks.
So you're thinking that this thing starts up here and funnels down instead of going the other way?
That would be ideal. I just don't think we've got the time for what I'm hearing Vicky say. I guess that's a big question. We've been going along this way for a long time. Do we go another year doing the same thing? Or do we want to say on a temporary basis, at least for 2026 and maybe even 27, this is what we see. This is our best guess of what the community would want. And then we go out to that bigger input piece. And then it may need to edit the smaller funnel of exactly where our priorities are.
So is that what
Need a
you're
whiteboard.
thinking you're wanting to get what we want, what our vision is, and get started, and then what is the process? And then we move out to the public, or what is what are we trying to do with this strategic plan?
So when I talked with, Larry, he said with his strategic planning, or, here's how his process was, is truly to get what you guys ran on your platform. What is it that you said you you could go out to the public and do the bigger picture, you probably need to be done, but you were elected to accomplish certain things. So maybe that is a piece for get through this budget cycle to accomplish whatever those main priorities are, and maybe they're, and then build their plans to develop to that, and then we spend the budget, which I also need to, pull those funds that says, here's how much we're allocating for this, and then year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. However that 1, 3, and 5, however that looks, if that helps you set aside those funds that say, we're not going to build the bridge today, we're going to build it in 2 years. We've got to have those funds set aside so you don't spend those funds doing something else. You have to get on a vision.
Or not, instead of doing that in 10 years, we're going to do it in 2 years.
That's different. That. Let me take this as an example. So I like what you said, what we ran on this platform. One of the things I said I was going to do was work with the whole community and figure out what we want this community to look like 30 years from now. And so that made, do we want to keep these fields in, nice and green in summertime, or we want houses on them? That is my goal before I leave here as a commissioner. So that would go into this smaller visioning or retreat and just say, okay, so we need to budget for that within the next year. That's just one small example. Okay, so I'm just using that. And so the same thing with road and bridge. We know that this bridge is in trouble, and I think they probably got all that, a lot of it in the head and in the records and stuff, but let's get it down. What I'm seeing in the report, it's not really down anywhere that they could find anyway, what that looked like. As far as what bridge is going to be planned for this year, next year, and the next year kind of thing. If I read the report correctly, that's the part we're missing.
They do have a bridge report, but it varies with different, it can vary.
Right. And then all of a sudden the state comes in and looks at your bridge and says, no, this one today. So, and I mean, but so I guess if you and I set a time to look at what we've already got in the early next week, then we revisit that conversation, Vicky. I mean, does that make sense to you? I don't want to delay it any more than anybody else does. It's just today and tomorrow I ain't gonna get to look at it. If you can print it off for me this weekend, I'd be happy to look at it. Let's put it that way.
I will do that.
Okay.
I'm okay with that, but I don't want to say that I'm okay with it permanent.
No, I'm fine. We need to
I want-
revisit it as soon as and in fact, don't we have a work session scheduled for before the meeting on Tuesday?
Mm-mm. No,
We don't?
Mm-mm. We don't have anything on the work session yet.
Well, maybe this could be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Brucey, wasn't there some?
And Laura is actually talking to Meredith with CTSI to see if she would prefer to move it to the work session in the morning
Okay.
versus during the meeting.
Okay.
So potentially, but we could move or do this in work session if you'd like to put it in.
I would like that because
Yeah, I think so. And then that way we get a better, we make it happen.
Just the strategic plan discussion or how?
I think
I think that's fine. Yeah, I think that's perfect.
And I'll get that in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Got kicked out. I'm gonna get kicked back in again.
It's been very nice.
I know, right? It says I'm there, but I don't think I am.
Try to click on stuff and I for 5 minutes before I can see it.
Yeah, the internet's having some challenges.
I like playing the Jeopardy tune.
It seems to you, my wife told me this morning I should quit that, not everybody get mad at me.
So that's a problem with the network.
Okay.
A little bit.
Well,
How fast
Um,
it's going.
Yeah.
You can just,
what was it? So let me
You
just
don't
walk
think
through it
it's-
and then I'll send you the presentation. Does that sound okay?
Good.
sounds good.
Okay, so I think we've covered everything on priority 5, which is overall the budget calendar and quarterly reporting and the clear plans on that. So we'll work on that on Monday. Priority number 6, they suggested, complete DHS monthly reconciliations. Glad to report that that has made, good progress. Looks like I'm back on. On your screen. There we go. Okay. There we go. The screen's opening.
Look
The screen is opening. They're opening.
at that. I'm like, what is that?
I was trying to keep it a little light.
And then I realized it's, yeah.
So complete DHS monthly reconciliation. Okay. Status. That is in progress with interim finance directors. So Lisa and Danny have been working hard on that. I tentatively put a July 31st date on that, but I'm not holding you to that. Do you think that's doable?
I
For
think
the
so. We've
DHS
got it up
reconciliation?
through- We've got it up through May. We can start working on June when those reports are all ready. Come up with a good process. They're working.
Okay, and I'm back up, so we'll hold our fingers tight. So then going forward, basically, hopefully we can maintain a monthly reconciliation process. Danny did a lot of research and doing away with a program called SIMA eliminates the redundancy and lag between SIMA and Encode. I don't know exactly what that means, so I'd have to defer to you guys of what doing away with that program has meant. Did it add work, took away work?
How do you think it's gone for you? SIMA was basically, Danny was the only one in SIMA all the time and the only one who had access to it. So she was doing all the DHS accounting in SIMA, which does have more detailed accounts than what are in Encode currently. But it was also just creating the situation where she'd do all this work in SIMA and then have to do a reconciliation from SIMA to Encode. It was kind of error prone and cumbersome. And so it created delays in never reconciling anything in Encode. So you weren't getting timely information in Encode. It used to be reconciled, I think, quarterly. So getting rid of SIMA then just decreases a program that's only being used by one person, not being really reviewed by anybody else or used by anybody else. It makes everything more real time. And so all the expenses are being booked in Encode. The biggest thing I saw was that revenues always come through Encode anyway. They're getting, all the payments from the state are going through the treasurer's department, so they end up in Encode. A lot of the operating expenses were already being booked to Encode anyway in their natural classification. So like payroll and benefits and things like that were being put in Encode, but it was those individual vouchers that were just being processed through SIMA that were only being posted to Encode on a quarterly basis. So you weren't seeing all of the expenses. So this process makes it better where everything's going directly into SIMA and then being reconciled. That makes sense.
Okay, so just to get my brain around, so SIMA is what DHS was using,
Yes, and
and now they're not, they're just using Encode
yes,
to enter directly.
yes.
And so does that keep you from having to do anything in the mid step? It comes directly from them to Encode and
Is it
We're all
still the
good?
Voucher process that, or
They still have to voucher, nobody uses SIMA but me.
okay,
So it just eliminated a lot of processes and a lot of confusion and error. Because previously I would have to reconcile between state SIMA. And then I would have to reconcile between SIMA and.
Okay.
It's just taking that middle
yeah,
program out, plus reconciling and like. That is.
and I don't know what the reason was why we started using SIMA. We always used it.
I think we have always used it, another one of those things that was, we've always used it, we keep using it, and the codes in SIMA can match with the codes in the state. The Encode codes that we use do not match with the state, so that was something that I had to put them together. Everything's going where it's supposed to, but that was fairly
Because I'm trying to remember, does the state require SIMA? No. Okay, because when you started saying codes and the matching, I just,
No, I just have to make sure that when I submit expenses to the state, that they have the correct codes attached to them. Because even when we would do that quarterly journal entry to put those expenses into Encode, it was an extremely complicated spreadsheet that would match the state codes. This is getting rid of that. Very ridiculous.
are you excited about this? I would think
I don't
so,
have to do that journal entry. I
yeah,
mean, I still have to do them, but they're much more simple.
How do you go from, the Encode to the state report? Just, did you have to do it manually, or does that, you able to transfer those codes? The Encode, or how do you?
I have to create journal entries manually for like the checks and stuff that we cut. Some things that we pay, but I had to do that with SIMA. It's just different.
Oh, it doesn't
And
really change that.
I used a guide. Those are correct. And payroll is all, that's a totally different process to upload to the state. That didn't. Actually got rid of the entire.
And how will that then affect with Bamboo doing payroll? The DHS will be in there. Will it be the same, basically same process? It's just a different widget?
I'll still have to upload those expenses to the state. So it'll be a matter of just getting a report that I
Tell me that Encode is gonna make your life easier.
In code 10.
Encode 10.
probably a lot more user friendly. Reports, yeah, reports are a big thing. All those reports that we send you guys for the AP and payroll, that takes a lot of time.
Hmm.
And they fast,
You like the process?
hopefully. We will not tell the user.
So next on the list was priority 7 and 8. Again, going back to the Eide Bailey report. Those have been consolidated under the bamboo HR initiative. I'm not saying the other word. Which includes automation, onboarding, and validation reduction. So, another piece of that bamboo is how much time that's going to save Laura and Chrissy from the start of publishing an advertisement for a job position. Someone clicks on the link, they go to Bamboo, it will gather all the information. It's a click of a button to say, yeah, I want to hire this guy and not that guy. It sends out the letters. It does. I mean, it's just a very comprehensive thing, and then build it within the payroll system. It's compared to the 4 or 5 systems she uses now, and then has to get to finance to be able to, do all that part. It should really streamline it. Priority 9 is begin long-term financial and capital planning. So this comes back to the clear plans within ClearGov and the module for budgeting, which has capital projects in it, which we've never used. Eric is the most proficient at using it and did set that up. We started it last year. But again, this is that tie-in to, what bridges do we have to replace in year 1, year 3, year 5, year 10, year 15, 25? I mean, you can, that capital module basically then helps you to start figuring out how much funds you're going to set aside. Now, if you don't have the funds set aside, you ain't going to do the project, unless you find a place for it to come out from somewhere. Once, if we can get that built out, then we can develop the financial policy and capital schedules to align with your strategy. And I think that comes back to that whole planning phase that says, why do we spend money on projects that are not within our scope of alignment? Because once you set the scope and you say, this is what we want to accomplish, it makes it real clear what you're not going to do. Yes, you may have an emergency that you need to address, and that's fine. But then is it, squirrel? Okay, let's go chase this down. Let's go do this. Let's spend money on that. So I hope that will really do that. And again, I included that located consultant to lead us through the strategic planning. Callie and I will talk on Monday, and we'll see if we can avoid that step. But we may need it for a future public position. Priority 10. Update year-end close procedures. This is, I'll have to defer to you guys. Use Encode for fixed asset accruals and audit prep. And I don't know what those tools are. That was part of the Bailey's report. And then Encode 10 enables increased year-end automation according to Gibson.
I think if you can use the accounting software to its full advantage, then you can eliminate a lot of manual journal entries that you have to do. Probably what he's talking about. So that year-end process is just recognizing a lot of revenues and expenses and determining which period they should be in, and doing a lot of journal entries, which are also increase your risk of misstating something. As many things as you're doing manually, the higher risk you have that you're misstating something. So if you're using Encode 10 to its full potential and able to use everything that's available in the software, then a lot of that should just be automatic and you should be recognizing revenues and expenses in the proper period as the year progresses and you have less work to do at the end of the year. The fixed asset module would be a module in Encode where you could have all of your capital assets listed. It depreciates the assets for you. You can put in salvage values.
And we don't currently do that.
No, currently it's on a workbook. So it's a giant workbook with multiple tabs. And every year you have to go in and roll that thing over and make sure you still have those assets, that everything, all the formulas are still working right in the workbook. And those workbooks seem to work well for a few years and then they start to kind of break down if something happens one year and a calculation gets broken.
Was it just Excel worksheet?
It's an Excel workbook. Yeah, so it's cumbersome to roll forward and it's really prone to error. So if you had something in Encode, then it would automatically roll over. It's easy to update those.
So if I
manually.
think I'm right, so that you've got all your list of your assets. So for instance, vehicles too, and it would be each vehicle would have its own thing.
Yeah.
When that vehicle is sold or traded off, there would be a code that said it went away and then you don't have to be worrying about that from there on, right?
Correct. And it also allows you to pull reports throughout the year. So if you need a fixed asset report to be able to send to the insurance, then you have something you can just download instead of trying to go back into that depreciation workbook and pull out the information you need. Make sure it's correct and update it.
Yeah.
Halfway through.
And is this a part of Encode 10 or do we have to pay extra for it?
I don't think we have the fixed asset module right now, so I think you'd have to pay for it. I'm not sure if it's one time or annually.
I'll find that out on the fix it.
You said something that made me think that using Encode 10 efficiently. How do we know we're doing that? And how will we be able to keep track
I'm
of that?
glad you asked that question. If you'll just be patient, we'll get there.
Okay.
Don't jump ahead.
Doug, what do
He's
you want
just
get
trying
the
to be
job done?
teacher's pet is what he's
Exactly.
really doing here.
You get a star, and if you would remind me to ask it, if, assign homework at the end of the session. Okay. One of the things, priority 11 that they listed was update finance department job descriptions. Of course, with these changes that we're going to be implementing, it'll be critical for us to go back through those job descriptions, make sure they're right, that they fit what the job is, reflects the current duties, and noting, like back to what Doug's comment was, some of this automation will shift responsibilities and roles have to be identified to be clear. Like I talked to the directors, a lot of this is going to be pushing what these ladies have been doing back to them, back to the directors to make sure things are right. Because then I've got a way to say, this isn't being done on a timely basis. This is a needs improvement area for you. You've got to do X, Y, or Z, or why is this not getting done? Again, that pushes that responsibility back down. And then, the purpose of finance is to make sure that those books are going to, be able to be reconciled, that we'll be able to have a good audit, that those things are there where we have the controls that we need. So I think by updating the finance department job descriptions, I had mentioned to you, I'd send you those 3 that we have. I'm going to include the other 2, but we will have to do that. That will be a part of this process. It's not been done yet. I don't have it scheduled, but we will get through that as we work on that.
But that is a lot of the stuff that accounting is doing. That belongs with the directors because the directors know what's going on in their department and accounting doesn't. They need to be doing accounting. They don't need to be doing double checking whether the lawn was mowed right or whatever.
Well, and I think with automation and with technology, we can reallocate a lot of, like back to what you said, there's resources that we can reallocate time to, without wasting time, without, I mean, there are things that we need to get done and get addressed. And I think with automation, there will be new things that come up too. There's always those things that says, well, now we can take on something else. We can grow this to be something else if that's a direction we want to go. So again, being more technological savvy, I think will certainly help.
Will you please make sure to send all of their job descriptions? I would like to see all of them.
Sure.
And just cautioning again that we don't make a job description to a person, but to a position.
Yeah.
And we tend to do that in this county. So I just want to put that out there.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the other ones was the priority to automate sales and use tax. The current process is managed via spreadsheets. The recommendation is to implement a program called GovOS. It is in the 2025 budget to have a software to do that. The benefits would be online filing, reduced manual entry, greater accuracy, going back to the same thing of the technology is there. We're still stuck in using, technologies from 5-10 years ago, and things have changed. Run along with that. Okay, so I'm going to try and do a thing real quick, and I don't know that it'll work. So bear with me a minute.
One of the things that this what we're hoping to, that this will help with is right now we're very reliant on the one employee to do the job. There's not been any real cross training help with that. And hopefully we get it automated in where it works better with the automatic reports further down from the state allocation of those the tax and revenues to the appropriate parties and things like that will make it easier when we have a change in personnel for another person to come in and take over those duties, responsibilities.
Or if that person is out sick for
Yeah, not
30
sick for a
days
long period
or
of time
whatever.
For anything like
Yeah.
that allow that replacement or supplementation.
May do the same thing it did before, but I'll try it. Yep. You lost your network connection.
You're the one that's blowing it up.
Maybe. Okay, so we won't do that. Let me just do this. I'm going to hang on. Oh, stop. Oh, stop.
An additional role that we do This is the Oklahoma County Clerk of Court and Comptroller's Office. We maintain all the treasury and the surplus funds for the county. An additional role that we do is we provide the management and receiving of the tourist development tax. We have a team who works with all of the short-term rental owners that rent for vacation and other short-term rental properties in the county. And so we maintain the records and the receipting for all of those rentals. We generate over $30 million in tourist-related taxes that is used by the development department.
They have. We do not collect the tourist tax or anything like that, but it's the same concept with sales and use tax. So basically what it would do is GovOS currently does reconcile the state's income tax, or not income tax,
Use and sales tax.
use and sales tax, thank you, and provides that information. And they do have a significant staff here in Colorado. And the demo, like we would do this would be one of those things. So we would need to schedule a demo to see how that would look and what that would roll out like. But I had looked at some other options, and really for what we do, and we kind of do it differently in Rio Blanco, we actually collect for the town. So we only have two taxes. We have the state and then we have the county taxes. And then we are responsible, based on our previous MOU, of splitting those out to the towns. In talking with them, they said, oh no, they can do that. They can set that up. They can set the parameters up. It would be a seamless transition and not something we'd have to continue to do manually. So it looks like a good solution. Again, I did provide for funds in the 2025 budget for it if we chose to go pull that trigger early, but I think we still need to do some work to figure out how that would look and what we want that system to do it for us. But I think it is something that could be fairly easy. It looks similar to Bamboo. When you think of anybody that gets charged sales tax, that is going to the state. It's the part from pulling it from that information from the state and splitting it out to the two towns and what share does the county get to take that is the lengthy process, that is the spreadsheet process. It automates a lot of that process.
We do that by address, and the computer does that in a tenth of a second.
Now there will be some challenges because again, we're doing that for the towns for free. And, you know, that would be up to the commissioners to determine, you know, is that something where they share in the cost of the program? Is it something where they do you know, we allow them just to say, well, you know, now, you know, how do we undo that county tax? Because again, they don't have a separate sales tax. We would have to somehow do a new resolution, a new thing to split that out.
First of all, tourism rental tax, who collects that?
We don't collect that here at the county.
Who does? Do you?
I think it's the towns, isn't it?
I don't know.
Well, there's the lodging tax.
That's what I'm
Lodging
talking
tax.
about. Lodging tax. Who collects that?
We do that.
We do.
It's through the county. Everything comes through
So
the county.
that's what that thing was
Yeah, I
talking
guess
about.
they're talking about.
It's the same situation. So
Right.
that is in that department also.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I was just curious about that. Go ahead.
So I guess the easiest example I have, and maybe they're different. So when you buy a vehicle, you pay taxes on it there, then they send our taxes to us, right?
Correct.
And then, or sometimes they will just say, you know, you'll get to pay that when you do your titling or whatever, right? That when, so, and that's not that big. So I get it as far
No,
as we,
it used to be that way, but now since they've changed the law, if you buy an automobile in Colorado, when you do your paperwork, it goes to wherever you're going to register that vehicle. That's where the tax goes.
okay. So then when, building or anybody else, oil and gas or anybody else is buying things that they'll bring into the county, then they pay for it out there. Then does that automatically get brought back to us when it's billed? Sometimes those people don't know where it's going. So how do we get those taxes back here when somebody goes and buys a bunch of lumber from Home Depot or wherever? How does that money get back here?
And if they come to us and they get a exemption certificate to take with them, like Glenwood, let's say they're buying at Glenwood. They take their exemption certificate there showing that it's going to be used for a house in Rio Blanco County. Then they don't have to pay taxes in Glenwood. Then that gets reported back to Rio Blanco County, and that's where the taxes should be paid.
Okay.
If they pay it in Glenwood, then they've got to do, because we'll collect the use tax on it, and they'll have to ask for a refund. The taxes that they paid in Glenwood that go to the county.
So if I'm understand what you're saying, when we go to automation, even the customers that would typically talk to Deb are gonna be doing it online? Or is it just the internal stuff that's gonna go online?
Yes, they have the ability to do that all online. Their vendors
Okay,
plug and play. I mean, it's a click, a link. And, the way they described, the way Amanda from GovOS described it, it's extremely user friendly for the person who's purchased it.
So, two things. More in the industry, if somebody buys a huge Caterpillar generator or a bunch of pipe or something that's really expensive and brings it into the county, how do we catch that? We're not relying on the people that sold them the pipe. That may never happen. Are we relying on, is that what Deb does? Is she goes out there and says, where's the tax on this?
I think, I'd have to differ on this, but my understanding on the process is, of course, they've applied for a permit to build or do something.
Yeah.
And so that's that spur where she then contacts them and says, or the other part too, is when the assessor goes out and says, wait a minute, this didn't used to be there. There wasn't, 50.
Then it's turned over to that department and they try and go collect it.
Right.
So
This would be,
that will still happen if somebody's building a house or a project and they get a building permit, then our department would call them and say, I need receipts to see that you bought everything in this county, or if you bought it out of county, I need this amount of money. So that part of our stuff is going to remain the same. It's just the tax that is collected and sent to us from the state.
Well, I think that they would, it pulls that from the state, but I think also they could just do that online and put in,
Yeah.
you know, that this is what.
They could if everybody was honest and, you know, knew what they needed to do.
You need a person to run corral on that,
Yeah.
but so much of it can be automated. So
Right.
then you probably, you know, and again, the other part to that is allowing them to, you know, be the better person. You know, I don't know that our industry necessarily has not been truthful with this, you know, but again, the process is so much quicker for them to just basically file it. They're in Houston, let's say. They hop on, they file it and they say,
Yeah.
I've got, because they're getting their invoices and they say, oh, I
Sure.
know, I need to pay sales tax on this. Done.
Sure, I understand that. I was just trying to get it in my head how this new system would be different than our old system, and I can see the automation taking part of it. Some of it's remaining the same, the way that we take care of it. Yeah, I have other ways that we were talking about taking care of that, but I won't muddy the waters today. We'll just,
I think the big thing is though, it does provide for us succession planning. Because then it does
right,
create that record for going on succession planning. It is included in the 2025 budget. The other part to that, you know, just to kind of, oops, let me back up one. Hang on. The other part to that is, we're going to have to figure out how to untie that relationship, or how does that work? Again, we're collecting that amount for the town.
no,
So there's going to be another process involved short of, if we said we're going to do GovOS tomorrow, we would have to figure out how that's going to look with the towns.
in my suggestion, or my idea with that is, you take the percentage of, we have what it costs us to do that. We should be able to track that. And if the town gets 25%, Rangeley gets 25%, and the county gets 50, that's the way you split the expenses up. They should be paying for their percentage of collecting those taxes.
I think it's closer to 25 county.
Well, whatever it is, you get my gist of what I'm saying. Is it, we should have an MOU with them to,
Not only for the software, but the time invested that.
well, I'm talking about the department that collects the
the
tax.
department, I mean, it is a very real cost.
So if I'm understanding it right, then, so the towns don't have a different or an additional tax like a lot of towns do.
No.
It's
Okay.
kind of interesting because it's part of the ballot issue. It's one tax through the countywide tax.
Okay.
And then it gets paid into where it was. If it was in Rangeley gets
Okay.
the money. If it's,
Okay,
Wherever it was purchased.
okay,
and if it's unincorporated county or if it's a use. That where the use is.
If Samuelson's wasn't in the town of Meeker, that would all go to the county.
county.
Yeah.
Well, I think the largest percentage, of course, is our industry partners. You know, because the dollar amounts of those things are huge.
Yes. Yeah, you may-
Generally, because of we have a building department who's building code and stuff like that. That does work with the tax department in that. So that triggers, that's a trigger that, okay,
Yeah.
so-and-so house on the hill.
Well, and honestly, I think you had mentioned this previously, unless I'm forgetting something. It would be cheaper for people to pay the real Lincoln County tax instead of paying it or paying Glenwood's taxes.
That's what I was just saying.
different things.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, and Junction or anywhere else.
We're
Yeah.
cheaper than anywhere around.
But
So,
when you go to that place and hand them that piece of paper, there's not very many of them that don't give you the blank stare like, what? I'm not doing that. You know, it's tough
mhm.
to get them to not charge you tax.
And then if they do charge you tax, then, and you turn that in that they did, then the county goes somewhere else to try to collect that
Well,
back.
the problem with that is I think that you have to pay the county tax again,
Yeah.
plus that tax down there.
And then, well, you
Oh,
know,
really?
you can get a refund for the other tax if it was.
Yeah.
wrong.
But you have to do it.
That's on the individual, the individual. You
Okay.
do say, I paid you
Okay.
these 8 taxes and I don't live here and it needs to be reversed. And then I'm sure the process to get that reversed is not an easy one and follow up and
Okay.
telephone call.
Well, that right there is why your people don't want to do it. It's because it's an additional tax. So I mean, if you've got 8% tax there and 6% here, you've just paid through the nose for it.
Well,
But
it's 2.9 everywhere, so it would be like 4.5 there and 3.6 here. The 2.9 is always
The
paid.
state tax.
it's state tax, right?
Okay, so enough on that. That one is a plan and a project to try to move forward, but first we're gonna have.
How we can do that? It's
That
in our
is-
budget list.
You're done?
We can get the software and get it started. I think that process would be fine to get started, but we're gonna have to get legal involved for.
Well, yeah, and I think we're gonna have to have that software specifically set up for our situation too, which is.
We'll get started on it if we can.
So my suggestion would be
Okay,
that we
yeah.
send the towns a letter and tell them what we are up to and where we're headed with this, and we're gonna have to have an MOU. Right?
Updating.
I need to pull the resolution that we had, because I think we might have to undo that resolution. If we're gonna take it back to you. We've got that,
Yeah, well,
unilateral bill.
whatever that legal stuff you do. And the other thing that, where is this? You know, we say let's get it done, but where is it in our manpower? What do we have time? What's it gonna do right now?
Hmm.
Is this a mistake to do it right now?
I don't, because again, it shouldn't involve finance at this point, which is probably stress, taking that burden on. This would be typically like with that department, sales and use tax department directly. But how much of that is that back office setup and those kinds of things? I don't know that. And that's why I was saying we're going to have to do a little work on that to have a demo, have Amanda say, this is what you currently got. This is how much it's going to take. Here's how much of your staff resources you're going to have to dedicate to get this done. And then, making sure we can either
Yeah.
tie up or modify.
I'm
But-
wanting to get that going. What
If
about-
we can go ahead and get it going, we can. get
Yeah.
I see it as more part of that strategic planning. In my eyes, that's how I'm looking at it. I think it's gonna take a lot more than we realize.
I guess what I would suggest is we give Vicky and Dawn a little bit of time to figure out the details. They were just kind of, but then be back to us within the next couple of weeks as to what kind of timeline you think we can get it done. I mean, we do want to move it forward as quickly as we can, but let's look at what it's really going to take. But I agree, we need to move it as quick as we can.
Oh, yeah, I'm okay with either one of you want to do there. Just let's get it going.
Yeah.
But I think that we should send the towns a letter
Yes.
letting them know what
I
our
agree with that.
intentions are so that we're not blindsided.
Well, and that they can budget it, if they're in budget season right now too, so they need to be budgeting for that.
Yeah.
We'll just have to figure out what that is gonna look like.
Direction given. Oh, I'm no longer, I'm in the meeting again. Why do you keep
Is there
keeping
anybody
me?
in the meeting?
No.
I think everybody's.
Is Mike? Is that anything to do with my computer? I don't think so.
Oh, my computer.
My computer's not in the way. I'm hugging Jennifer over here.
Okay, so I've got a few more things, but my computer has completely died. Completely fucked up. It is froze up from the blow up. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of go back to my paper one, and then I'll send you this.
Good presenter skills. Always have the hard copy with you.
So priority 13 was develop best procedures and cross training plan. So going back to what Doug had mentioned earlier, this is an objective that we can possibly, utilize Bailey for. It's not something that's included in the budget. However, it is one of those things of the same thing that you've talked about of the policies. You know, what is the procedure for doing specific tasks? Those kinds of desk policies that say, we can do this, we can do that, because with change in automation, we're going to change these policies and procedures. The other part to that is the training modules that we've got. I think that's under this. Hang on one second. Let me make sure that that's not. That's another slide about training. So, the desk policy and cross training each other would be within departments, making sure more than one person can do a task. In order to get there, we're going to need an extra body to take the load off in order for someone to train and to get, you know, once this person's moved up on this, then they can take over that. They've already done a good job of doing that with, you do that currently with payroll. You don't do the AP though, right? So just payroll is switched over. What other things do you guys taking on? Anything else? So, you know, by redoing a lot of this automation, hopefully that will give us the time to cross train so that when someone wins the lottery and, you know, they've taken that, you know, cruise, that I'm not coming back, that we've got that still in place. We've got that wealth of knowledge that can take over and be a little more seamless. Slide 14 is appoint in-code system administrator. This is one of their suggestions that it's very, there was some staff, you know, in the conversations that I Bailey had with various members of the county. There's kind of not an unknown type. There's kind of a crossover structure where Danny does some of the in-code setup and he has to do some of it. And from what I understand, there wasn't necessarily a clear identified role for that. So what they suggested as IT as a technical administrator and then finance as a functional administrator. And then that purpose would be managed systems, security permissions, and integration. And to me, I think we already do that, but I just don't know that that's necessarily a known concept. Or maybe there's work that we need to do to push that out. Number 15. I'm still at the screen of death. Implement purchase orders and update procurement policy. This would be within like the 2026 time period. There will be changes because we're making automation. Automation is going to take over some of that. Like we talked about that process between the approving of the budget and the contracts. And then how does that look? That's not what our procurement policy has. So we're going to have to update, make sure. Okay, so anyhow, another thing that I would like to get done is Carol had brought to me earlier this year, must have been January, February, I think, might even been last year, the credit card policy. We have just about everybody in the county that's got a credit card. Mountain Valley Bank is our provider. They tried, our limit is approximately about $100,000. And I don't know that that's realistic. A lot of the cards end up with 2 times a year, or maybe even 1 time a year, they have an expense for lodging and hotel and travel or whatever that is. Then a lot of the time the card just sits. Well, they still have to make that available balance available. So if it's a $2,000 card, it may not seem like much, but when you've got 10 of those that are sitting in a drawer until that one person needs to use it. So again, there's a lot of cleanup that I think we can do on that. And whether that's restructuring so that there's not an individual card for everyone, that there's, you know, for departments have maybe streamline it to one card where it doesn't have a person's name on it, but it's got the real Lincoln County, the tax ID. I think there's a lot of work we can do on that. Again, what that would do then is that's going to streamline your accounting, your AP process. Because instead of having, how many cards, Carol? I don't know how many there are. 40 some cards, that's 40 separate vouchers. That's 40 separate statements. You know, is there a way we can consolidate that, maybe somehow figure out a different way to do that? Now, in talking with my department heads as well as with others, there is a panic module that kicks in and says, no, I've got to have my credit card. How am I going to purchase the widget? You know, how do I need, you know, I'm going to need that because I don't know when I'm going to need the widget, but when I need the widget, I need to go buy the widget. And so there will be some work on that we need to do. So that was
Are these credit cards or debit cards?
credit cards.
I have worked in my business with credit cards and they're all on the same account and you just have different cards that are issued. It's not a separate statement for everyone.
Well,
There's other ways to do
That's
that.
pretty much is that we all have a card.
but
And it's just got a number of who charged that.
And any card go out.
however, that's when you come back to the receipts. How do we identify? I mean, Jennifer gets a separate statement than your statement. It is one, you get a bulk.
I get a master statement and then I print off all the people that used it. Send them out. I would be afraid that if we had just a master statement, that I wouldn't get receipts from all the people. I think sending out individual statements and making them match up their statement.
Well, you'd still know,
better.
you still know who made the charge because it's identified on your statement.
Yeah,
But it's them
But I
getting
need to
the
send it out to them to make sure they get me those
Oh,
receipts.
yeah, well, that would be a lot of,
And maybe we put more of that on the directors, department heads and elected officials.
well, I would think that would go into this accounts payable thing where if you charge something, you go in and put in a voucher for it. And
but you still have to, and that was one of the things they said is, even with Encode, with the account payable module. It's as simple as taking a picture on your phone of a receipt or, you know, then uploading it into that system, but it's on that individual to do that.
Right.
You know, to say, okay, here's my, 10 receipts and for coffee or whatnot and those types of things. That needs to be still captured because that's going to go back towards, what did that person actually, did they use it for strippers and cocaine or did they actually use it for X amount? I mean, that's kind of meeting that receipt is and I say that just because
we can do that?
no, we can't do that at a county level. But that's why I think
Bring your receipts.
you can't prove it. You can't prove it. But that's that whole thing of why Carol has to go through that headache of making sure that those receipts are there and attached. Now, again, we can push that back to.
I understand that with this new accounts payable system should make that way easier on her because it should just all fall in there unless somebody is the bad guy that doesn't get his stuff done and then
Hanging them.
you get demerits for him.
I think putting it back on directors and supervisors and minimizing our liability of these 40 cards sitting out there too. I'll just tell a really quick story as a supervisor for another county where I was the one that was responsible. So if I had a person come get my card from me as a supervisor, it was for my department. Then I had to go through the receipts and I had a receipt for Victoria's Secret. And I went, why are we shopping at Victoria's Secret? So I brought the employee in that had my card and asked, and she gave me lip service. And I said, no, we do not do this. And I had to catch that. And then I was the one addressing that. So I do agree with you, Dawn. I think we need to look at the liability and what that looks like for us as a county with all these cards, because I know when I worked for the college, there was very, very few cards out there. And that because the liability is there and on that.
Again, it goes to the supervisors, the department heads and supervisors ought to know if this person was authorized to go to Denver for this conference, or if they just went to a party in Denver and got the hotel and bought 3 meals a day while they were there. And
I think it's a challenge of also identifying who has to legitimately have a credit card. I mean, as the commissioners, you could not share one credit card. You're going in three different directions. You've got hotel stays, you've got vehicles expenses, food, whatever that is. I don't see that as being one. I don't see the DHS caseworkers as being able to be without a card because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. They've got to get formula for a baby. They've got to be able to get it without, them having to come out of pocket to do that. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. But then where can we look at that to consolidate?
Well, and I think that a lot of it is be like the supervisors that deal with that. And then, or department cards. I don't know if we have the ability to do within the departments like we could do overall, where okay, you may have 3 cards associated with HS. And if somebody is going, out on a call or doing something, they could take one of those cards rather than have each of those, maybe have someone range there, have one there. How many cards do HS have right now?
Yeah, I think around 8.
And I mean, Leanne needs one for the disciplinary deal where she has to buy things for families and stuff that they do there. So she's probably one of them that needs her own card. But we could probably have caseworker card both places. And then
There's better options, and I don't think that there's probably more out there than what our bank is doing for us. So it's just gonna take some
Research.
research, and we can't figure that out here.
Yeah. Next part. Oh, yeah, I'm stuck. My computer's not. I didn't give up. Standardized network file storage. So that is in progress. That started with the policies and procedures folder, which you all should have access to now. That particular, Eric and his team or the IT team are willing to do a presentation or a training session module with us to say, here's how files need to be named. Because we can't really, I don't see us going back into the past to try and correct the thousands of files that we have previously named, but we can make a diligent start going forward, how everything is saved out on Google Drive and what that naming convention looks like so that we have, for instance, if you're going to search for a specific contract, that you can do a search for that and it will pull up a bunch of different places where that name shows up. Bob the Builder shows up. And then you'll see a final contract. And then you would know that that's the one that you need to look at. Now, if I'm going to make a change in a document or something like that, it's nice to have a Word document. We need to standardize that naming and that file folder system. So we are already starting on that process, but that was their priority 16. We go for the countywide Google Drive folder for policies and procedures. That's underway. That went out to the directors last week, I think, 2 weeks ago, asking them to start dropping their policies and procedures. If they didn't know where something should go, that they drop it in the 9.9 file. So in that drive folder, you should see 02, 03, or 4 or 5. It lists out the different departments. If they didn't know where it went, it goes into the 9.9 until we can modify it, finalize it, and drop it into another one of the folders. But that's easily searchable. So if you want to put credit cards, it should find all the times the credit card shows up. I forgot where I went. Purchase orders and storage. Oh, we're to the last one. 17. Launch recurring financial training program. So Doug, this is what you're talking. So, and in that financial training, what we're talking is specifically in-code training for a lot of that. Of course, all these other systems, as we develop those, will require specific training. But the in-code, I don't know when we switched to in-code. It's been a long time. I don't know if we ever had training on it. Yeah, it was before 2019. I know. I don't know how far before that. 2015, before 2015. You guys know how long we've been on in-code?
before 16 and
before 15, I'm thinking it's like 2010, something like that, maybe even before that. And I don't know that we ever had a formal training class. Well, that's something that now can advocate for. And through Gibson, who is our new in-code person, I think is a lot more responsive than our previous Tyler representative. And so I think that we can get some serious training, and we will need that for going forward with 10. We can start that process. And one of my questions to him will be, we want to start seeing some training modules and what that looks like for Encode 10 way before we get to the switchover, so that we have that already up and running. Now, if there's Encode 9 things that we also need to do training on, for instance, I could do a training, Eric actually is a really good trainer on Encode, about here's how you pull your own budget actual numbers. Here's how you do that. Here's what it looks like. Here's how you enter the question marks. Here's how you, so then again, that training on all those different reports that are possibly out there, there's no reason why that has to be played close to the vest. If you're not able to input the information, there shouldn't be a reason why I couldn't go in and pull someone else's budget. Do I have time to pull everyone else's budget? No, but there's not a reason. We're a governmental entity. We should be able to see those expenses. Now, of course, payroll and things like that, there are some things there that would have to be protected. But basically that training module on not only Encode, ClearGov, Clear Plans, GovOS, or whatever the numerous things, we can lay out that training module and say, we're going to have training on this day. We're going to have budget training on this day, and just keep pushing that out. And we can, and it'll be up to employees and directors to get their employees there, because again, we can provide the resources, but you can't make the horse drink sometimes.
There's some online modules too that we're gonna do before the training too.
ClearGov, I sent that out. Yep, there was in ClearGov, there were 2 training modules that you had to attend before you could do the in-person. And they did that because a lot of those questions can be answered by looking at the training. So, but then there's also additional things that we can do. Someone's still struggling with something, I have no problems trying to walk through that. That is it. That's Eide Bailey in a couple hours. No, sure. We're only an hour over, 43 minutes over. I think we had said 11, but
I want to thank all of you people for what you do for the accounting, and then ask you if there's anything you want to input on what we just went through.
be included in it. But, I think what we're wanting to move forward with is with the payroll, the bamboo, and then AP. We're all for that to get going. I would like to see the AP held off a little bit after payroll. Don't try and have this having me do both. And, that way, if we do AP later, we have the cross train and we all able to learn it. It'd be easier to wait until this February, probably after we get the first of the year stuff done. Very helpful. But, yes, having some direction.
But it,
Any other thoughts, you other two?
well, thank you. We do appreciate what you do.
Yeah, thank you.
I want you to know that.
and I think just it bears repeating that they have kept the ship afloat and, through a very, very, very strong finance director who did, a lot of things, and that knowledge was kind of captured with that when she left, getting the new finance director, that was kind of, okay, well, a whole new learning process, and then losing that finance director, but still getting paid. And that's the thing is, vouchers got paid. We've been paid for payroll, the audit gets done, the back filing gets done, grants are being kept up, but it's a lot of stress, And, so,
I hope you see some light at the end of the tunnel, is what I'm hoping.
and it's not a train.
Yeah.
Get him some other training.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, it will not be easy. And I think when I talked with the ladies before, when Colleen left, it's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be ugly for a while, but hopefully we've got to a plan now by having E. Bailey give us some specific directions and tools, and we can use them also when we step into something that starts to seem as a struggle. They can come in and assist us with either training, if we don't feel like we're getting enough of the INCO training, if it's not speaking to our level, they can provide that. Now it costs, but again, that cost versus benefit reward, if we can end up, you know, is there another thing that we can automate? Is there something else that we can look at doing, you know, to further improve doing smarter, not working harder?
One of my goals is so we don't have, where we lose the person, we get set back as hard as we were. We're cross-trained, we all know a little bit about what everybody does, and it won't be such a harsh reality when we're trying to.
And that's a goal throughout the county. We should be-
Have every
we should be
single
too
department,
deep in
absolutely.
everything.
And that's part of that, making sure that we have that planning phase that's got more than one person in those single departments to step up and be able to overload.
Thank you.
And we go eat now.
You can go eat. You're good to go.
All righty. Thank you, you guys. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you all. Appreciate it very much.